And one thing that's like interesting about these guys from World War II that are still with us is they have this element of positivity. I think that's part of why they live so long. They have an optimism as like much as they may be disgruntled about, the world and the younger generations, as every older generation will be about the younger ones forever. That's just how we are. It was always harder when we were growing up. They have this hope that they hold on to and belief that it will get better. And they are encouraging the young people and they spend time with young people and mentoring them. If they didn't believe in them, they wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? If they didn't believe that this was possible, that things will get better, if they didn't have that element of positivity. So I think that is huge. And look, like everybody at our core, we're all selfish. Like that's just the way it is. You think of yourself first because you see through your own eyes always. Like you can't help that. There's nothing wrong with that. When you make selfish decisions that don't benefit others and only benefit yourself, that's when it's dangerous. But like
that's being negatively selfish, in my opinion. Yep. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Finding Good podcast. Here we dive deep into conversations with remarkable people who have found success in life despite all of life's myriad challenges and found good on the other side. Based on 3 tenets defined in my best-selling memoir, Finding Good, these individuals have been positively selfish, surrounded themselves with good people, and more than anything, done their part to make this world a better place. My name is Mike Thompson, and this is Finding Good. Welcome back to the Finding Good podcast, my friends. I am Mike Thompson, and my guest today is somebody I've been trying to get on the podcast since I started this endeavor. One thing you'll notice about all my guests is there's some commonality. It's usually related to fitness or lifestyle or entrepreneurship. And this guest today, I can tell you, is truly one of a kind. His story is unlike any other. He is a friend for sure, but more than that, he is a Green Beret, having served in the U.S. Army Special Forces Division. He's a professional NFL football player, retired a few years ago. He's a University of Texas Longhorn legend. He is an entrepreneur. He is a philanthropist and just an all-around good guy. I cannot wait to get into this conversation with him today on Finding Good. Nate Boyer, welcome, my friend, to the Finding Good podcast.
Thank you. Do you remember where we first met, by the way?
I believe it was Austin Marathon, charity chaser, pre-COVID.
Who was I chasing?
Me, on the bike. But 2020. It
wasn't pre-COVID.
Wasn't?
No, that was during COVID. That was Snowvid.
That's right.
Snowpocalypse.
Well, yeah, so it had to be 2021.
Yep.
And it was right before the ice storm, the Snowvid hit, and it was freezing cold, and you were running a marathon solo with High Five Events and the Austin Marathon. And I just remember that day, like, this guy's nuts. Like,
well, that was my first marathon.
Which is even more crazy. So what did you run? It was a three something.
3:12.
You smoked it. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. First marathon to qualify for Boston, basically.
I'll take it. I did not qualify for Boston.
You were close.
I think I had to get 3:07 or something like that.
But you could have. I mean, we could have shaved 5 minutes off there.
Yeah, we could have just BS'd it. We should have.
But leading up to that point, I had only known the legend of Nate Boyer. I obviously followed you when you were at UT. I knew about your journey through the Army, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But just so the audience knows, what are you up to right now? What is Nate Boyer, the veteran, the entrepreneur, the athlete, doing nowadays?
Well, most recently, I just got back from Tanzania a couple days ago. I was out there with Waterboys, which was started by Chris Long, good friend of mine. Played in the NFL for 11, 12 years, won a couple Super Bowls, and has a big heart for the clean water issue in East Africa specifically. So Waterboys, basically his initial goal was to raise enough money to dig 32 wells from the 32 NFL teams through the locker room, fan base, all that. And he's surpassed that by a lot. I think they've dug over 100 wells now. But he reached out to me actually the day after I got cut from Seattle and was like, I would love to have you involved in Waterboys at some level. I want to do something with vets. What do you think? And I said, well, let's take a group of vets and NFL players up to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. We'll raise money throughout the year to put wells in the ground. And so we started that in 2016. And then I'd gone every year until COVID, and I hadn't been back since. So this was my first time back since 2019. And, we went out there, and it's It's 19,341 feet.
I've been.
It's no joke. You've done it?
Yeah.
You've done Kili?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. When did you go?
2015.
Okay, the year before me.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
dude.
We
Cool.
just missed each other
We
on the
did just
mountain.
miss each other. It's an awesome place.
And what
I
a
mean,
worthy cause too. Africa is just, I mean, it literally is like being on another planet when you're on Kili. I mean, you're looking around and it just seems
especially
otherworldly.
up in the Arctic. Yeah. You
Yes.
start in the rainforest and you end in the Arctic.
It's
bizarre.
fascinating to go through all those different climates, but the part that was most remarkable to me were the people, the
Mhm.
guides and the porters, and certainly the residents of Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, surrounding areas. And if you haven't seen it, go online, follow Nate Boyer at Nate Boyer, I believe.
At
on
Nate Boyer
Instagram.
37.
At Nate Boyer
My
37.
college
That's
number.
right. College number. That's right. But Nate has a ton of incredible content with just the area around Kili of all of the kids there, that basically the beneficiaries of your work and Chris Long's work with the Waterboys.
Yeah.
What does that look like moving forward? Because it seems like you're just getting started.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, Chris started this 10 years ago with the organization, and it'll be our 10-year anniversary next year of climbing Kili with this group. We call it Conquering Kili. That's the challenge. And if you're interested in going back,
I am.
we should look
100%.
into it.
I was going to ask you that.
We should talk. We should talk.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, the goal throughout the year is everybody that's committed to doing it. You know, we fundraise throughout the year, doing different things, doing your different races, for instance. Those are great opportunities to fundraise for, you know, the wells kind of throughout the year. And yeah, but you said it, the people, I mean, from the Maasai to the Meru tribe to the Chaga, there's all these different tribes and they all get along and they all appreciate each other. They're all different, you know, but it's a special place. And I don't know if there's many places like that on earth where you've got, you know, this beautiful land. Many of the people have very little, you know, whether it's money or access to clean water or whatever that is, you know,
But you wouldn't know it.
You would know. Yeah, they're just happy, man. They're just happy. The kids, you know, the whole argument for, you know, no devices for young people, that if you go see those kids there and just how appreciative and happy they are and how much fun they have and how social they are.
I remember their smiles.
They're all playing games.
The way that they smile is the most pure smile I've ever seen.
They've got this, even the shy ones, they have this like confidence around one another and around, like when we're there, they're just like excited. And I think a lot of that, I truly believe a lot of that's just because they don't have access to, you know, every digital thing on earth. And that's good. We got to get back to that, I think, more and more. Saying somebody that's addicted to his phone and social media, you know, is saying this, but it's true.
Well, we rely on that, especially you. I mean, you're directing a new documentary coming out. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But what I love about the charity work that you do is it showcases your investment in making the world a better place. And I do really love the Waterboys concept because it has that nod to football with Waterboys. Yeah. It initially started out with 32 teams, combining, you know, Chris Long, Kyle Long, like the legacy of Howie Long, right? This is a football family, and yet they're going beyond the sport and their own lives to make the world a better place. And you embody that well. And that fits in perfectly to one of the 3 tenets of finding good, which is leave the world better than you found it. And as listeners will know, if you're familiar with the podcast, hopefully you are.
You are now.
We like to go through all the 3 tenets of finding good. And there's another guest that I had on, Angela Mont, where I started with the 3rd tenet because that's the most obvious one, and that's leaving the world better than you found it. Waterboys isn't the only philanthropic endeavor that you're a part of. Can you tell us about MVP, merging vets and players, and A, how it started, and B, the work and the impact that you've had bringing veterans and veterans of military and veterans of the NFL together to do good?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, both of those organizations, at least MVP actually was founded right around that same time that the Conquering Kili thing came about. Look, I served in the military for roughly 10 years. First half of that on active duty full time. Second half of that when I was in college and playing football and through the National Guard. And I would deploy every summer between take my finals a little bit early, go to Afghanistan or somewhere, and then come back for training camp, you know, play football, do that whole thing. So I had like this very high tempo in my early 30s, college experience. but I had these 2 locker rooms, these 2 uniforms that I identified with, these 2 teams, the camaraderie, the purpose, the mission, all those things. And then I got out of the military in early 2015 and was signed by the Seahawks shortly thereafter, had finished school, obviously. And then I got cut in the fall. And so all of a sudden I've got neither of those things. I don't have the locker room or the team room, as we call it in the military. The community, like the reason to get up at 6 and prepare and train and do your recovery and eat a certain way. And, your whole life kind of revolves around that, which, yes, it's a job, quote unquote, but it doesn't feel like it. It's like, it is kind of who you are.
It's part of your life.
Yeah. And it's more than part of your life. It feels like it is your life. And everybody reacts to it differently, and everybody's got different, effects of post-traumatic stress, whether that's military related or not. It's a human issue. It's not just a military or a veteran issue. So it came from a void in my life too. And Jay Glazer, who I co-founded MVP with, recognized that. He noticed it because he's seen it in a lot of other athletes and in coaches even, just being around the game for 30 years, football, but also, mixed martial arts. And he's been a commentator in that space, and he used to wrestle himself and fought a little bit. And so he knew what it was like because he'd seen it from people that he was very close with on the athlete side, losing that sense of purpose, feeling like you peak at a young age, and all of a sudden, it's over, whether it's injury or it's just your time, and you're in your 20s more often than not. And you kind of feel like you've peaked and you'll never be great again. And veterans feel that often too, and we have a little more control of that, which is kind of interesting. People don't really think of it in that way.
There's programs, there's the VA, there's all these things that are kind of designed, but.
Well, not even that. I just mean, like, even if you're hurt, if you're under contract, and if you've enlisted, like, unless you're medically discharged, like, they rehab you, and they're not going to just cut you. Sure. You know what I mean? In that sense of, like, in football or any sport, it could end at any moment. You just don't know. Like, that's how it happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I played in one game, and then that next week, and I didn't even do bad in the game. It was just like the backup quarterback broke his foot. They needed to bring a new quarterback in. They had to keep that guy on roster. You got to lose one roster spot.
53
people. And that was my day.
Sure.
And I remember the GM, John Schneider, who's still a great friend, walking up to me with this, like, look on his face, like his puppy just died. And I knew it was coming. I was like, damn, and that's how it is. And it's like the rest of the team goes to the team meeting, and you go in the locker room by yourself and throw your cleats and jersey in a trash bag and go get on an airplane and fly back to wherever you live.
It's over in a heartbeat.
And that's it, and it's like, it's tough, it's weird. But it's a business. That's the way that is. And in the military, yes, it ends at a certain time. Usually you kind of know when that's coming, and you can re-enlist. It's a little more up to you. You have a little more ownership over that. And anyway, not that it's easier. It's just like you have a little more control of the situation, and then, but you're still not preparing for what's next, because you can't, if you spend any time focusing on the plan B, like plan A is going to go to hell, or you're just not going to give all your energy to that thing. You know what I mean? And so it's almost like you're quitting is not the right word, but it's almost like you're resolved to the fact that this is ending soon. And that's not necessarily the best headspace to be in if you're trying to compete at the highest level.
How does MVP help that transition happen, both on the veteran side and then also on the athlete side?
Well, we started more and more working with current players in current military, active duty, because there needs to be a level of awareness that, like, it's going to end. We shouldn't focus on that. You shouldn't just have this impending doom and, worry about the fact that coming around the corner is John Schneider with that look on his face. Like, it's going to happen though. And so, like, how do you, just knowing that there's a place like MVP, there's an organization like MVP, and there's lots of them, we're not the only ones, that you can use as resources. And it's full of people who are exactly in your shoes. Maybe it was a year ago, maybe it was 50 years ago. They know what that's like, and they've struggled with different things. They've experienced that transition. And so they're prepared for the pitfalls, you know what I mean? And either way, like, it's hard. Even if you're super prepared for it, even if you walk out on your terms, Tom Brady's a great example. The greatest to ever do it. 7 Super Bowl wins, 10 appearances.
Earned
Big
who knows
good-looking
how
guy,
much money. Yeah.
you know, all the money in the world. He knows he's going to have a big broadcasting deal afterwards. And he retired the first time, and then he came back because he was like, I would guess, I haven't had this conversation with him. I've never met him, but I would guess that like his mind was going crazy.
Sure.
And he was like missing it, but also like, no, I got to let it go. It's time. Right. It's time. No, I can't. And then he came back, and his last season was not his best year. You know what I mean? And, and maybe it would have been better to walk out the year before.
Sure.
And then, you know, and you know, family fell apart.
I was going to say, well,
like
obviously
like,
there were some ramifications to his
tough.
decision of that it goes beyond football.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, and that's not anybody's fault and whatever, but I just wonder if that's a thought now, you know, with him. Who knows? But it's just like, that's a great example of just the you know, the best player ever that just couldn't walk away. And that's
I'm sure there are a lot of athletes. I mean, I would say the majority of NFL athletes don't have the Tom Brady experience where they're have a 20+ year career.
0.1%.
Yeah. And so, you know, MVP helps those players that do, you know, exit the NFL either prematurely, according to them, or suddenly, as you mentioned. On the veteran side of things, obviously you're dealing with PTSD injuries. The convergence of, you know, military versus NFL is something that I just want to talk about this really quickly.
Yeah.
The Finding Good podcast is apolitical. We don't like to dive into it, but what I'm about to ask you about, I think, transcends politics. Your relationship with Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling obviously went far and wide. I mean, in terms of virality, it was probably the most talked about thing around that time, 2021, 2022. And your part in it, I don't know if a lot of people know this, is you obviously have the credibility as a veteran. I mean, 6 years in the Army, 4+ with the National Guard, like nobody can question your sacrifices that you've made in the military. Tours in Iraq, Army Special Forces, Green Beret, like you are, you know, a legend when it comes to military service. And so you had that unique perspective. And I believe it was it Sergeant Thompson who had passed, and you had gotten a text from, I think, his wife, and you showed that to Colin, and you were like, this is why you can't sit down. This is why you need to honor. But you also understood that the racial divide in America, while since 1964, the Civil Rights Act, there still is racism, regardless of whether people acknowledge that or not. If you deny that, then you just are living with your head in the sand.
Yeah.
And so I just really quickly wanted to talk about what went through your mind during that moment of having these two kind of dichotomous awareness pieces of being the veteran, of serving in the military, of losing friends, losing colleagues in the military, and getting that text while also acknowledging the continued racism existence in America. And instead of having Colin Kaepernick sit, you said, look, to honor fallen soldiers in the military, we kneel. We kneel by their graveside to honor their life. What was going through your mind whenever you went through that process?
I mean, a lot of things were going through my mind. It was the middle of an election cycle, and that was round one of Trump versus Hillary, you know. I guess there was only one round of those two, but you know what I'm saying.
Trump versus the world.
This is this was in September of 2016, right around 9/11. It was the 15th anniversary of 9/11, and a year after I'd been cut, and we're back in the preseason. And you know, he started sitting on the bench. He'd done it a couple games, and it created a stir. I mean, the media.
They take stuff and run with it.
Dude,
the media's horrible.
It's very toxic.
Yeah.
And it's obviously,
they want clicks.
The cable news media is, you know, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years, and more divisive, and it's frustrating. It's not information. It's just spin.
Yeah. Disinformation.
Yeah. It's disinformation.
They want clicks.
And so I got reached out to by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, you name it. They wanted me to come on and debate the topic. I think probably be a talking head versus another talking head, take a side, and then go sell prescription drugs on their ads. You know, I mean, that's basically what they do.
Right.
And I didn't really want to be a part of that. I didn't think it was healthy, but also I had like a nuanced opinion about it. Look, I mean, the flag, the anthem, those things mean a lot to me, the symbols, because of my experience, because what I did serving in the military and all that, but that's not everybody's experience. And at the same time, what I took the oath to defend was the Constitution, which includes the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. That's what I fought for. And so somebody expressing that, exercising that, is what I'm defending. You know, whether I agree with it or not, it's not about what I think and what I believe. It's just that's the right. If they're doing it in a safe way, in a healthy way, in a and largely a non-offensive way, in my opinion.
Sure. Then
I understand that. And then I also understand that it hurts feelings. You know what I mean? Like it's, to a lot of people, it felt like it was the antithesis of what that flag is supposed to represent and all that. But you don't know what that person's feeling. You don't know what their experience is like. And, you know, for me, I mean, I only know as anybody what my world is like. And, you know, I'm a white American male, and I do have a lot of advantages, you know, and I have had, you know, a level of privilege, I'll say, because of that. And there's just only so much that I know that I've been able to see and feel and touch myself. And so, look, I wrote this open letter to the Army Times instead of going on the news. And it was just an open letter to him, my opinions, my experiences. I wrote it in an hour and a half over a couple glasses of wine in my recliner at my apartment. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't this well thought out. I mean, I guess it was kind of well thought out, but it wasn't like, I think people imagine that I, you know,
spent months crafting it.
Yeah. And it was something that I'd been thinking about deeply for a long time, and it wasn't. It was just like that week, that was what was going on in my life, and it was frustrating. So I was just like, well, I'll just get this out. And I figured, you know, nobody reads the Army Times, not even people in the Army. So it got sent. I sent it, and it got out there, and it did go kind of viral. And, you know, I had people like Lance Armstrong and other athletes and you know, people in I don't know, high places is the right word, but
public figures.
Yeah. A lot of public figures reach out and say that they were inspired by it and were sharing it. And a lot of people in the sports media world were sharing it as well. Because I think the reason they did was because it was sort of a reasonable take, you know, and kind of a,
it is reasonable.
I wasn't saying one thing or the other, and it wasn't super articulate. It was just, this is what I'm feeling, man. Like, I mean,
I kind of disagree with you there. I thought it was very articulate and easy to understand, because
easy to understand is not articulate.
Well,
to me,
yeah,
if something's articulate, I'm like, I don't know what this means.
That's fair. But what I think you did is you showed that two things can be true at the same time. That there is a significance to the sacrifice that veterans and those that have lost their lives have made.
Absolutely.
To defend this country. America is the most fascinating project in the human experience, I think. And we have that because we are middle-aged white American men.
Totally.
And we're beneficiaries of this 250 plus year project. But at the same time, we can also acknowledge the racial disparities that exist in our country, and that predominantly minorities are treated differently in the judicial system and society at large. And so I just wanted to touch on that briefly, because I think it showcases your intelligence and your ability to see the nuances of those situations. So
yeah, I mean, look, I look at it in these terms. So, I mean, you said it, like there's a great number of sacrifices made by people in the military, and I've lost friends. And, you know, as you alluded to, when I was sitting down talking to Cap, I got a text from a buddy that said, you know, hey, I'm with you on this whole thing. I appreciate your letter, but I'm also at the tarmac as, you know, a friend of ours is being unloaded, his coffin draped in an American flag.
Yep.
And his wife standing next to me, and she's a wreck. And I just, you know, right now I'm filled with rage for anybody that disrespects the symbols. So like, I also understand that, you know, and I had people that called me a disgrace to the Green Beret because of what I wrote and the fact that I suggested an alternative, kneeling versus sitting, because he wasn't going to stand, trying to find a middle ground.
Common ground.
And there's people that just were like, no, man, there's right and there's wrong. There's black and there's white, not racially, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And I disagree. I think that there's a way for us all to figure it out. They figured it out in Tanzania. We can figure it out here.
And that's what's so great about America is we can disagree and still get along.
Right.
So
hopefully
transitioning. Yeah, exactly.
We should. How about that? We should disagree. And
exactly.
get along.
Yeah, absolutely. So transitioning, from the first tenet that we talked about, which is the third tenet of finding good, leave the world better than you found it. I want to work back towards the people that have brought you to where you are. And I just remember this clip of Mac Brown, heralded coach at UT, talking about your work ethic and your ability to having never played a down of football in your entire life prior to walking on to the University of Texas, one of the most celebrated football programs in college history. And Mac said that you said, I've never played a down of football before, but I will work harder than anybody. I will practice every day to become the best that I possibly can, the best football player I can, the best military service member I can, the best human being that I can. But that doesn't happen alone. It happens with people along the way. So who are the people that Nate Boyer surrounds himself with? The Mac Browns of the world, your fellow servicemen, your Jay Glazer. Who are those people that have brought you to where you are today?
It's a lot of people. I mean, it definitely started, this is the canned standard answer, but it started with my parents, and it's true. I was very lucky to have two very involved parents, and two parents that loved me very much, and two parents that worked very hard to provide opportunities and, both full-time jobs. My dad worked two full-time jobs. Essentially, it was one job, but the guy worked like 80 hours a week. He was a racehorse veterinarian, and, he's up at 4:45, heading to the track every morning, getting home sometimes 6, 7 o'clock, working on Christmas. But still found a way to, teach me how to play catch and go to the ball games and like whatever it was, not just sports related, but like be there, and same with my mom. And she's raising me and my brother and sister, and she's working full time. She was an engineer, brilliant woman. She got her PhD from Cal Berkeley, one of the first women in her programs, in a PhD program. And so like I had that example. So I was very lucky to have that, just people that worked and worked and worked and worked. And like, and it's funny, my mom has said things like, oh, you're the hardest working person I've ever met. I'm like,
you are, Mom.
Look in the mirror, dummy.
Yeah.
But it's true. And so I had that. I was very lucky to have that as an example. And also my younger brother and sister have been leaders, to me, even though they're younger than me, for my whole life. So I had that. But then, people in the military that I served with, like you said, Mac Brown, and then Pete Carroll was my other coach. Like how lucky can
Iconic
you be? Yeah,
coaches.
It's just two great people. First, and then also championship coaches. Coached against each other in the greatest college football game ever.
That's awesome.
Ironically, I pulled for USC in that game because I was from California. So
yeah, you couldn't not.
Before I knew better. And now I know
Sorry
better.
to break your heart.
No. I'm glad it was shattered because it brought me here.
Yeah.
So I had those people. And I had my best friend in the military who unfortunately passed away in 2012, Brad Keys. He was a great example. I remember being in Iraq and hearing his story. He'd married a single mother who had a child with some pretty severe disabilities. And Brad had been married before when he was young, as many people in the military do. And he's like, oh, I'm never getting married again. And, whatever. And then he meets Lisa, and then he meets Ethan, and he just fell in love with them, together, right. Which is really cool. And then unfortunately passed in 2012. But that happens, and it's during bowl practices. We're about to play in the Alamo Bowl against Oregon State. And I get asked to be a pallbearer in the funeral. And it's like a week before the game. And of course, Mac was like, oh, you have to go do question. That, And not only that, they flew me out there. Like the team
That's incredible.
Paid for it, Flew me out to North Carolina so I could carry his casket. And then came back, and Mac dedicated the game to Brad and his wife and his son. And we're down 27-10 in like late third quarter. It's not looking good. And then we come back and win the game. And it was just really special.
Just getting goosebumps thinking about
cool.
that.
It was cool. It was like that was the most special game. That and my senior year against OU, even though we lost, that was a special game too. Just the way that game unfolded. But this one kind of takes the cake because of everything that went on, and that whole situation. And I'll never forget. We scored to go ahead, like a minute left, and we kick off to them, and then we sacked the quarterback 4 times in a row to end the game. It's crazy. It's like Kenny Vaccaro's jumping over fullbacks, and Alex Okafor's, mayhem in the backfield, and it was cool. It was cool.
In situations like that, whenever there's an external narrative going on with the game like that, that's dedicated to somebody. Obviously, that's the most important part, and like winning and losing shouldn't matter. But when you can win and pull out a victory like that, I mean, the feeling that you must have had, the pride that you must have had, knowing that was the week that Brad passed, but his legacy was still being carried on through your work. It's important to share those stories and to keep Brad's and probably the countless other veterans that you knew and they're no longer here, keep those memories alive. And I want to transition really quickly to telling those stories through your acting, because I consider you like a Renaissance man, Nate. I mean, your entrepreneurship, your history as a veteran, your history as an athlete, like it's just how have you been able to do all this stuff in 44 young years? But The Terminal List, Den of Thieves, like, I mean, I think I've seen every single production that you've acted in. But now you are behind the camera and you're getting ready for the second time after MVP, the documentary, came out in 2022. You are in the process of a D-Day documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about.
First of all, MVP is scripted. It's
okay.
Not a doc.
Yeah. Okay. Non-documentary film.
It's a what do you call those? Like
film.
A biopic.
Yeah, biopic. There you go.
Biopic.
Yeah. Is it biopic or biopic? I've always said biopic, but I heard somebody say.
I'm not articulate. We talked about this.
But I heard somebody say biopic.
I think it's biopic.
But it's rhymes with myopic, which doesn't have a good connotation for me.
We'll just call that myopic.
We'll call it myopic and biopic. Okay. So tell us about D-Day. I think you said it was going to be D-Day plus 80.
Yeah, it's
80
working
plus
title.
Years.
Yeah.
But tell us about it, and why is it important to continue sharing those stories of veterans from World War II and other conflicts, really?
Yeah.
Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now moving into obviously current conflicts. Why is it important to continue to share those stories?
Well, one of the things that's interesting about D-Day, about World War II, about that generation, is there's a lot of parallels to today. Granted, it's a very different time. We didn't have access to what we have now, technologically, industrially, whatever you want to call it. It was very different, but they, many of them were born around the end of World War I, and there was a flu pandemic, right? And then they grew up in the Great Depression. Yep. Not that we're in a Great Depression, but they grew up it was very tough times, right? And then, of course, Hitler and the Nazi regime, and then Pearl Harbor, and then we're in war.
Remarkable times. I mean,
and then, June 6, 1944, like that, if we don't win, if we don't liberate France, probably speaking German, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's a very different world. What's the show? Man in the High Castle, as if the Nazis won. Like, it's a completely different reality. We have no idea, but and maybe we would have won later. I don't know. No one knows, but it was a crucial time. We threw everything we had at that, and lost a lot of people, and we lost a lot of people throughout the war. And even after that, even more so in the Battle of the Bulge and some of these, ensuing battles, but, getting to meet some of these guys and going out to Normandy for the first time myself during the 80th anniversary and getting these guys to sit down and tell their story straight to camera, first of all, which is hard to do for anybody, but they're 100 to 105 years old, the guys we interviewed. And they're kind of, some of them telling some of their stories for the first time, and some of them just maybe one last time. And what they've experienced from before the war and then since is insane. I mean, some of these stories are remarkable. One of the gentlemen specifically, he was in an all-black anti-aircraft artillery battalion, at 19 years old, 20 years old, and then comes back and he opens the first black-owned bank in Boston, the first integrated nightclub called the Western Front, which is really cool. And now he still lives. He lives in Cambridge, steps away from Harvard, and it's so interesting. He's still the only black dude on his block. He talks about that. but just like he grew up, when he was born in Alabama and grew up some in Cleveland and Boston, and like his grandparents were slaves and horse-drawn carriages and no electricity, like this world, this experience that we feel so removed from, but then to think that these guys were born closer to the Civil War than they were today is crazy.
Yeah,
it is just a crazy thing to think about. Like it's not that long ago, and our country's not that old, and sadly, most civilizations only last about 200, 250 years. Yeah. So we're about to have our 250th birthday next year. So
we're almost done.
I hope not. But like, it's something to think about. It is something to think about. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Yeah. But like these guys were right in the thick of it and they saved us once, and so like who's going to do that now? And so I think that's why it's super relevant, because are we heading in that direction again? Maybe. I hope not, but I don't know. It's scary to think about. And I think there's a lot of course correction that needs to happen in our world, but specifically in our country, because we're not in a good spot.
Yeah,
we're really not.
I agree with you there.
We've got a lot at our fingertips, and like we're relatively living okay, but it's the volatile.
I think that's
time.
The part that gets me the most, and why I think it's so important that you, specifically from your position as a veteran, continue to share these stories. Not
History
only did I grow
itself,
up in, my dad loved showcasing World War II history to me through a lot of different ways, but mainly we'd watch, war movies during national holidays, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. So we'd always watch Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
And I just remember thinking about that sacrifice of young men, 18, 20, 22, going to the front lines and literally laying down their life so that now we can look at our cell phones like this and talk about what we ate that day.
Yeah.
Just like part of what makes me cringe so much about content creation, and this comes from my own personal, not resentment, but just experience as a cancer survivor and growing up and dealing with 4 cancers and 90 surgeries and 2 bone marrow transplants and facial reconstruction. And that was just a cancer. Then it was 7 years of drug addiction where I didn't go a day without popping pills. And I see young kids now, and I remember teaching at Texas State and listening to what some of my students would say they wanted to do when they grew up. And it was like, oh, I want to be a content creator. I want to be an influencer. And that's fine. That's part of our economy right
influencing?
Now. Exactly. Like, I don't want to be ever known as an influencer. I want to influence, sure. But I think it's important to continue to share those stories just so that we can curb the entitlement of what younger generations are going through now, which is freedom to do literally whatever they want. I mean, they don't have to choose a vocation. They don't have to sacrifice really anything. They can just make content from their handheld device. And to your point, I know plenty of German people now, and, I think the Germans are great, but we could be living in a different world,
right?
100%.
Yeah, the German people have nothing to do with the Nazi regime today. Yeah. I mean, let's just make that clear. It's a very different thing. Yeah, exactly.
And so you sharing those stories, I think, is vital to our continued healing. And you talk about us being in a bad place right now. I couldn't agree more. And it just seems like we've lost all civility. And I'd hate to sound cynical when I say that, but that's kind of why I started Finding Good, why I wrote the book about my personal story. You don't have to have had cancer or been addicted to drugs to find something relevant in my story. You don't have to have served in the Green Berets or done tours in Iraq and Afghanistan to have respect for the military and to understand the sacrifices that veterans and first responders make every single day. But there are some people that are not exposed to it. There are young generations right now whose parents are probably close to our age that don't show them Full Metal Jacket, or don't show them documentaries about D-Day, or don't show them the plight of slavery, or what the Jews and really any disenfranchised groups in 1940s Europe went through.
Yeah, right.
And so sharing those stories is vital, but your ability to do that, to not only as an actor, but now as a director behind the screen is hugely important. But you're only one man. Yeah. And so I want to transition really quick into the final tenet that we'll talk about today, but the first tenet of Finding Good, which is to be positively selfish. And it is my belief that in order to truly impact the world, we have to be 100%. It's the oxygen mask metaphor. when you're on an airplane. That's why they
Yep.
tell you to put it on first so you don't become a liability. You're a veteran. You are founder of a nonprofit. You're an entrepreneur. We're going to get to 8 Primal here in a minute. You are a former NFL player, Longhorn legend. You're a Renaissance man. You just don't seem to stop. But what do you do to make sure that you're whole? What does it look like for Nate? Walk me through a day of exercise, of food. What do you do to stay positively selfish so that Nate is 100% and he can give 100% to the world?
Well, I certainly don't. I'm not a big routine guy, which is interesting. Like I think a lot of people assume I have a strict regimen.
And they promote it. In fact, they're like, you got to get up early. You got to do this, that, and the other. But
I don't, man.
You're proof
I think
that
it's
you don't have
important.
that.
I think it's important to enjoy yourself and to have fun and to eat the things that you want to eat. But also to do something every day, like physically demanding, challenging, whether that's in the gym and you're just pushing yourself there or whatever, mentally too. But I think that's super important, and making sure you're getting sleep. You know, if you're up late, which I am often, sometimes I'm working, sometimes I'm having fun, and sleep in the next day, unless you have to get up for something. Like, just let your body rest. You have to have that, you know? So if I have any kind of regimen, it's just making sure that I'm getting sleep, making sure that I'm having fun, making sure that I'm pursuing the things that I'm passionate about, as hard as they may be and as lonely as that can be sometimes. Making sure of all those things. I think that is super important. And one thing that's like interesting about these guys from World War II that are still with us is they have this element of positivity. I think that's part of why they live so long. They have an optimism as like much as they may be disgruntled about, you know, the world and the younger generations, as every older generation will be about the younger ones forever. That's just how we are. It was always harder when we were growing up. They have this hope that they hold on to and belief that it will get better. And they are encouraging the young people, and they spend time with young people and mentoring them. If they didn't believe in them, they wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? If they didn't believe that this was possible, that things will get better, if they didn't have that element of positivity. So I think that is huge. And look, like everybody at our core, we're all selfish. Like that's just the way it is. You think of yourself first because you see through your own eyes always. Like you can't help that. There's nothing wrong with that. When you make selfish decisions that don't benefit others and only benefit yourself, that's when it's dangerous. But like
that's being negatively selfish, in my opinion. Yep.
But like when we go to Tanzania and we dig water wells, it makes us feel good. That's a selfish thing. You know, at its core, in some ways, it is a selfish thing, and that's not bad. That's coming from a good place. But you should feel good. You should be happy with yourself and appreciate who you are and love on yourself. You have to do that. And those are all selfish things. But anyway, I think that's something that's interesting to look at from those older guys. And look from the younger folks today too, like there is a lot of access to things, but there's also a lot of barriers. I mean, shit's expensive. It's very expensive. People can't afford homes. You know, the inflation rate is and has been out of control. It's not keeping up with like federal minimum wage and these things, you know, and now we've got a situation where, you know, we're asking people to leave the country that we're willing to work at that wage, you know, and like, are young people going to step up and take those jobs? I don't know, because they live in this world. They're exposed to this world where they think they all are going to be able to be, you know, famous content creators or influencers or whatever that is, where the reality is it's 1 out of 1,000 or probably worse than that can make a living doing this. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to blame them. It's not their fault. It's like what they're exposed to, and it's kind of what has been thrown in their face. And, so there's all of those things to consider, but I think it's important to continue to tell the stories of the past because they do repeat themselves. History repeats itself all the time. But also like we're going to learn from these folks, you know what I mean? Just like with MVP, you're coming out of the military, you're coming out of football or whatever sport you're playing, you're going to learn from those that have walked this walk already, you know, and have stumbled and figured it out. And like, you got to have that awareness. So it's like, it's a teaching point. And not from me, but like letting other people teach and giving them a microphone and letting them share. I think that's important. So yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it though when you said that the selfishness, the positive, how do you describe it?
Be positively selfish.
Positively selfish, is essential. And it's just who we are as human beings. Like we can't not be selfish. So like, which one are you going to be, negatively selfish or positively selfish? And accepting that that's just a part of it is freeing, I think. And like, you're just like, okay, well, we're all selfish. So feeling these things is normal, feeling like everything is affecting me is normal. So now how can I embrace that, but also have a positive output on my environment?
I was meeting with a friend and an advisor, my friend Doug, a few days ago, and he was saying that being positively selfish is a paradox because by being positively selfish, we can then give more of ourselves to others. And I think you've done that in spades. Like just by acknowledging that selfishness and understanding that you don't operate at 100%, nobody else is going to benefit from Nate at 100% is vital. And given the time that we're living in now, the original meaning of the swastika before it was bastardized by the Nazis is a cycle of life referred to in dumbed down terms of strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times make hard men.
Yeah.
And right now we are living in easy times. And if we don't keep our competitive edge sharp and we don't.
Are we though? I think we were. I don't know if we are.
We may be transitioning into more difficult times, but for a while, and in your point of inflation, things are becoming harder and harder to live. Division, right? Yeah. We could now be entering into that realm of times becoming hard again, and we're going to have to get harder and more competitive and sharper as people. But at the same time, I think there are people out there that are working on that effort, and you're one of them.
There's a lot of people that care.
Exactly. And I think
and a lot of young people too.
Right after COVID, I started to feel a little bit more cynical about the world. Like we're not here for each other. We're all, negatively selfish. And it's people like you that bring me back and remind me like, no, this is a fight that's worth joining, of bringing people back to good and promoting kindness and promoting philanthropy and just really uplifting anybody around us that we have the privilege of interacting with in this short life.
Well, that's one thing that I notice. I mean, that one of the great things about America is when we do have these terrible tragedies, whether it's 9/11 or Hurricane Harvey, pandemic, recently the fires in LA and the horrible things that happened on New Year's, all these things. It's been, January was a shit show. It was rough.
Yeah. Not a good start to 2025.
No, not a good start. But like at the same time, to see communities come together and people help one another and how we do sort of rally when stuff gets tough, we don't become negatively selfish, is pretty cool. It's pretty inspiring. It's very American. And yeah, so I think that, and that's not everybody, but that's most of us, I think fall into that category. We do support and love our underdogs. We're one of the few places in the world where you can come from anything and be anything. It's not easy. It's easier for some than others. It's easier for me than a lot of people maybe, but it's still possible. And we love to see that. Like those are the people that inspire us. And so I think that's still there. That's still very American. And I don't think that's going away.
Do you think that most people are inherently good?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think maybe everybody is. And then things happen in their life that changes that, whether that's an illness, or circumstances and the way that they process what happened to them. You would have a lot of, I think less people would blame you if you were this angry person that was just, maybe not doing good stuff in the world because of what you had to experience, because of 90 surgeries and enduring this. Like you would have an excuse, I think, and a lot of people do. But it's also interesting to note that there's a lot of oftentimes people that have gone through more pain and suffering and forged in fire, for lack of a better term, are the ones who go on and do great things and do good. I've met so many people from, military experiences that have lost their vision and legs and all these things. And, they've run 100 marathons or whatever it is. And you're just like, they would never have run one if that thing hadn't happened to them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's something to that as well, which is quite interesting. But there's also people that experience things that go the other way. You know what I mean? And I think that they were probably inherently good, but this thing, they didn't know how to handle it. And they didn't embrace that struggle and the suffering and all of that. Instead, they blamed and fell victim to and became Adolf Hitler or whatever that is. And I don't know that, but that's what I think. That's what I believe. I believe we all, at our core and at our birth or whatever are inherently good and capable of doing great things and all capable of saving the world together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's a great example. And like you said, people that have endured significant trauma, whether it's being born into it or happens later in their life, like you said, justifiably, you'd understand if they weren't able to come back from that. And the life that they live could be described as less than proud. Great example of this is my friend Mike McKim, who has his own podcast called the Be Pause podcast that he founded after his son Connor, who is also he's in the Marines, probably a very bright military career ahead of him, was killed in a car accident coming home for Thanksgiving a few years ago. And anybody could have understood if Mike just kind of went in with, kept everything internal and didn't associate with the outside world at all. But instead, he sat down with his wife, Rochelle, and decided to start a podcast to help other people cope with grief. I mean, I can't even imagine having to bury your own child. Like, we're not supposed to do that. Our kids are supposed to outlive us. And the power, the strength that it took for Mike to do that, I think is what's so inspiring to me, that you talk about that, like enduring trauma, but then coming back from that and using it to inspire others to live their best life is crucial to me. And I think that's what you've done with all of your life experience. But pivoting to some more lighthearted conversations, one of your defining traits is your entrepreneurship. I've always thought that you were a great business guy, many plates spinning in the air, but your latest endeavor, 8 Primal. What's that?
It's a meat company.
Yep.
So
we talk about food. We both love food.
Yeah. I like to eat.
Yep.
And anybody that knows me knows that I'm, the ultimate garbage disposal. We'll be at a restaurant. I may not even know you, but
clean plates.
Yeah. If you're about to send that back and you ain't putting it in a box, like, what are you doing? I'm about to eat that if it's good.
I'm that way also.
And
don't waste food.
Don't waste food. Don't waste food. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of food out there, right? And we don't all know where it's coming from.
Yep.
And it's a lot of dangerous stuff. And look, I wanted to be a part of supporting small businesses and local farmers, and being a veteran and being a part of a veteran-owned company is fun to me. It's important to me, and the challenge of it, I think that's part of it. Just anything. I when I was in college, I invested in a bar here in Austin and ended up doing pretty well. And I just kind of took a chance because I believed in the people that I met. Willie and Brett, good friends of mine, at a bar called Handlebar, and now it's El Cockfight. But yeah, it was just like, same with this. I met we met this couple in Weimar, and it's a family owned farm, and everything's ethically raised, no hormones, antibiotics, any of that stuff. But also it's local. It's an hour, 15 minutes from Austin, and all the beef, pork, and chicken is born, bred, butchered, packed, and shipped from one place. Which is crazy. And, it's obviously a USDA facility.
Austin,
and all
Texas,
that.
or
we're focused on Austin, but no, we serve everywhere in the country. We've shipped to Hawaii, all over the country. But yeah, we want to start here locally, as far as getting the word out and kind of building that brand awareness of 8 Primal. By the way, 8 Primal, there are 8 Primal cuts, when it comes to an animal. So
I was wondering what the origin of
that's
the
where
name
the
was.
origin of that
I
is.
thought it would be Nate Primal.
Yeah, it should be. I pushed for that and I got a lot of pushback. But yeah, and so that's one of the coolest. I mean, that is the coolest part of it to me. It's like you can go out there to the ranch and like these animals are living free. You know what I mean? It is open range. And it's cool to see that and just know that like they're living a normal life. And then of course, when it is time, the animal is serving you. And so don't waste that meat because it is special. It's important. But also just knowing that, that everything is not only done ethically and cleanly, but that you're supporting American farmers. And a lot of people in Texas, they like to support Texas businesses as well. And so that's what 8 Primal is all about. 8primal.com is the website, the number 8.
And we'll put that in the show notes for everyone watching and listening today.
But yeah, we're also giving back to MVP, and that's important too. So,
I mean, you're involved with so many things going on right now. I know that one of your original proud accomplishments is serving in Darfur. I think that happened when you were about 23, right?
Yeah,
very
23.
Young.
Yep.
And so you've got 8 Primal, you're working on the documentary. What accomplishments that you haven't so far attained yet? What's on the list of goals for Nate Boyer?
I mean, I got a lot of things. I want to keep making films for sure. Eventually I want to have my own production company. But I don't know. I mean, things change all the time. I mean, I'm 44 years old, which I think's old, but it's not that old to your point on the ride over. Got a lot of life left and a lot that I want to do. And I know that's going to change. I think there's going to be plenty of things that will continue to come up as I continue to grow. And I
mean, if you stay at this rate, you're going to live another 50 years.
Yeah, hopefully. That'd be nice.
What are you going to do with those 50 years?
Well, I mean, eventually, the big thing is I do want to have a family. You know what I mean? I do want to, and it's not settling down. I think that's a common misconception too. Sure. People think that if you do that, it means you're just kind of giving up on your dreams.
Life isn't fun anymore.
No, it's finding a way, and I'm trying to figure that out. Finding a way to continue to be the person you are and chase those dreams and passions and do what you love while also doing this thing, which is something that I think I also will love, which is a family, and raising little ones. I want to do that. And whether that's having not my own, I mean, I can't get pregnant, but having our own or adopting or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, I think that all of that's important. I think maybe doing both would be cool. But I think that's a big one. And that's look, I wouldn't be here. None of us would be here without a family dynamic of some type, and so I think that's another way to give back, to be positively selfish, would be to do that, to start a family. So that's the biggest one probably.
Before we close, I want to go through some rapid fire questions here, so our audience can get to know Nate Boyer, Nate the Great Boyer, a little bit more. Nate, tell me your favorite actor or favorite movie.
My favorite movie is The Wrestler. It's a Darren Aronofsky film. Yeah, I love it. And Mickey Rourke's performance in it is unbelievable. I was going to say, Mickey Rourke's phenomenal. I mean, it's him playing him. Yeah. I mean, you can see it you could feel it. And then Marissa Tomei. He's a broken man, and it's dark, but but it's honest. It's raw. Yeah, it's very honest. Yeah. I love The Wrestler. So that's my favorite movie.
Great choice, man. Favorite artist or music or song?
I mean, I love a lot of artists, and it always changes. And I don't know if I could name a favorite song, but I got to see Van Morrison in concert. My dad took me when I was 18 years old, and that was really special. So I love and Van. I grew up listening to Van Morrison because that was one of my dad's favorites, if not his favorite. So
I don't think there's a bad Van Morrison song.
Yeah,
I think most people, if you're a younger generation, you might not know Van Morrison, but if you hear
some of his songs,
I was going to say, if you hear
many,
Into the Mystic or something like that, you're immediately drawn into it.
Yep,
that's a great one. Favorite meal, food, cuisine.
Man, I mean, I love.
Other than steak, obviously.
Big steak fan. You know what? So just coming off the mountain makes me think of this because you have soup with every meal.
Oh yeah,
when you're going up Killy. And this comes from my dad for sure too. Big soup guy.
You're a soup guy.
Yeah. Well, you're hydrating.
Yep.
You're getting the salts that you need and all that stuff
but
too.
But it's comfort.
But yeah, and it's like one of my best friends, Cody, he makes this incredible hot and sour stew.
Oh.
It's it's hot and sour soup, but it's heartier, thicker, and it's just unbelievable. So I love Asian cuisine. That's kind of one of my favorites, and they do their soups well.
Yeah, soup and noodles, man. Ultimate comfort food. Okay, another comfort food. Favorite ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip. Yeah, growing up, my mom for my birthday would always get me from Baskin Robbins this mint chip ice cream cake, which it's not great, but as a kid, you love it. And it's still nostalgic. Actually, this year for my birthday, Kristen and Vanessa Campos, two good friends of mine, threw a little birthday party for me at Toss, the pizza place, and they've tracked down
you're kidding.
a Baskin Robbins
mint chip awesome,
cake. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Nostalgia right there.
Thank you, sisters.
Yeah, that's a great gift. Favorite athlete in the history of sports?
The greatest athlete of all time is Jackie Robinson, and the first thing you think about, of course, is breaking the color barrier in baseball. But that guy,
he was just a badass.
He was an All-American in football, baseball, track, and basketball at UCLA.
And people know him for baseball,
athlete.
but like just all around, he could do anything.
Exactly. He was also in Tank Battalion in World War II.
Yep.
But I think that's an interesting thing. I know this is rapid fire, but when you talk about sacrifices that veterans make, there's a lot of sacrifices that people that didn't serve in the military or made sacrifices after the military, like Jackie Robinson, that changed our world. So I don't want anybody to think that you have to serve in the military to make these ultimate sacrifices or fight for something or fight for your fellow man. You don't, know, and not everybody should. If everybody served in the military, what are we fighting for? And, it wouldn't make sense. Hopefully, if we're in a world where everybody's serving in the military, that's not a good place to be, because it was 1 out of 8 during World War II. Yeah. And that's already a lot.
It's high.
That's high.
Super high.
So anyway, Jackie Robinson, no question. My favorite athlete, but also, in my opinion, the greatest athlete, at least in the last century.
Yeah. Great answer. Okay. Last rapid fire. Person in history that you would have liked to have met, dead or alive?
Oh, man.
Like to meet or like to have met?
I mean, Jackie Robinson would be a great one.
Can't be that.
That was a good one. Jackie Robinson is for sure one of them. But yeah, there's
can't be the same.
I can't be the same. I gotta have a different answer. I mean, there's a few guys. I have a lot of heroes that I watched on TV. I mean, from Anthony Bourdain's one that was very much up there. And sadly, a lot of these guys that are heroes of mine have taken their own life.
Yep.
And Robin Williams is one of those people. And he did a lot of work with the USO. He's a big supporter of the veteran community.
Big cyclist too.
Yeah, exactly. But there's also so many stories of him. Like every movie he worked on, he would make sure.
Wouldn't he hire homeless
people were employed? You know what I mean? And just such a broken man, and just hurting his whole life, and that's why he felt this need to just make everybody laugh and feel the joy that he didn't get to feel.
Yep. And he's so good at it.
And he's so good at it. And it's just like, and he's so aware and talked, as a lot of these people do that also take their own lives. They talk about combating suicide and how to avoid it, through their journeys. And they've eventually succumbed to it, which is so sad.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the veteran community lose a battle with suicide. I had a woman I used to date, and we had broken up, and a year later she took her own life. And just like this I experienced it enough, and not as much as many others, but enough. I had a guy I deployed with to Afghanistan, my last deployment, and he took his own life. Yeah. It just, it's super common. Sad. We've lost a couple of MVP members, one athlete, one veteran. And so Robin Williams though, just was such a light, and it's just so sad when you see that, but it is also a reminder, almost a martyr in some ways. Yeah. That absolutely. Anybody can be struggling, and check on the strong ones, and check on the ones who you think are doing fine and are always smiling and making everybody else laugh, because there's a chance they're hurting more than anybody else.
And I think it's important to note that, to your point, we don't know what anyone's going through, and they can seem like the wealthiest person. I'm talking about material wealth, but also they have everything they could possibly need, wife, family, whatever, and you just don't know what's going on. And to your point, one more thing about Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, Heath Ledger, Whitney Houston, Amy Winehouse. I mean, these like icons of, celebrity
Jack
status,
Kerouac,
but
Ernest Hemingway, David Foster Wallace, incredible
going,
writers.
Keep going, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like they are stars that burn so bright that they couldn't last forever.
Yeah.
But I think that's why it's important to celebrate others' victories, but also be there for them when they're down. We're all going to die at some point, but the life that we live between the moment we're born and when we eventually pass is our only shot at making this life worth it. And I think you've done an incredible job up to this point in your 44th year, and I see big things for you in the future. Really quick before we wrap up, tell our audience again how they can follow you on social. Let's do 8 Primal one more time, and then also how do we get involved with MVP and the Waterboys? Yeah,
so my social media handles are at NateBoyer37. Oh, thank you. You don't like that? Oh, buddy. 8primal.com if you want some good meat, some of my meat. And then, MVP, Emerging Vets and Players. Vetsandplayers.org is our website. So please go check that out. If you are or know former professional athletes or combat veterans that could utilize our program, please direct them our way. And also the Waterboys, waterboys.org/Kili, Kili is for the Conquering Kili program. We got to get you back up on that mountain, Bubba.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be awesome. You are 100% positively selfish, taking care of yourself every day, getting enough sleep, engaging in physical endeavors. I think it shows your fitness is obvious whenever I look at you. You look incredible. Surrounding yourself with good people. Anybody that I've met through you or read stories about showcases your ability to do just that. And then you are certainly leaving the world better than you found it every single day through your work in Emerging Vets and Players and the Waterboys. Can't thank you enough for coming on the Finding Good podcast.
Of course, brother.
We've got a lot of stuff, a lot of fun ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm trying. I'm going to keep on trying.
You're doing good. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Finding Good podcast. Please follow us on YouTube and wherever you subscribe to your podcasts. As always, my name is Mike Thompson. Keep finding good.